Welcome to the Speak by Design podcast, where we study personal style, message structure, and message strategy so you can become a consistently compelling force. Let's dig in. One important attribute all great leaders possess is the ability to stay poised and calm under pressure. In fact, this is one of the 4 attributes of gravitas that we talk about, which is first, emotional intelligence, second, being able to be decisive, 3, being able to speak truth to power, and fourth, this attribute of being poised or calm under pressure. And you can think of that as being graceful in the midst of chaos. When things are not going as planned, or you need to point everyone in the room in a new direction, you might be surprising your audience, or they have just surprised you. But in those moments, being able to control your emotions, managing your own fears, your own frustration, your own embarrassment or anxiety, that is paramount. You have to be able to control yourself. Well, how do you do that? Some of you think you can't control yourself, that you are just pushed to the brink of exhaustion or irritation, and this is a natural response. While it may be natural, it is not controlled. You, as a great leader, have to be able to control those negative emotions and manage them. What are the negative emotions? The negative emotions are anxiety, overwhelm, confusion, embarrassment, disappointment, frustration, anger. Sadness is one too. Those emotions are natural, but they have to be managed. How do you manage them? You manage them internally by the way you talk about them inside your head. So what I'm going to be showing you today, I want us to look into some of the statistics around what the sources of stress for leaders are. Then we're going to talk about 4 best practices that you can use in the moment when you are feeling that negative emotion. And then in there, we'll explore some positive phrases you can use to talk yourself back down. It's natural to spin out, but we want to spin back in and get yourself under control, and the thoughts will help you do that. Then I want to get very practical on the actual structures, message structures that help the most in staying poised under pressure and getting other people to calm down as well, and some dialoguing skills. Are we ready? Let's dive in. The sources of pressure could be decision-making pressure. Harvard Business Review put a study out that found that 86% of leaders experience decision-making fatigue, which is the constant need to make high-stakes decisions, which feels overwhelming and becomes a significant source of stress for people. Also, work-life balance. Deloitte put out a statistic that 70% of leaders report that maintaining a work-life balance is a primary source of stress, feeling like they either are failing at home or failing at work, not spending enough time with their family, not taking good care of themselves, their diet, sleep, and exercise. A third source of stress is organizational change. The American Psychological Association reported that 74% of leaders find organizational change, such as restructuring mergers and shifts in strategy, to be a significant source of stress. So much change happening in the organization. Also, employees and their mental health is a source of stress. We forget that the leaders care so much about their people and don't know how to deal with this burnout topic. A report from Gallup revealed that 61% of leaders feel stressed about ensuring the mental health and well-being of their employees. The Center of Creative Leadership put out a statistic that 52% of leaders feel constant stress from the pressure of meeting performance expectations. So just like the rest of the organization might fear performance reviews, that comes from the leaders feeling pressure, and it's cascading down. Time management is a source of pressure. 69% of leaders cite time management as an issue. They're struggling balancing multiple priorities, meetings, and deadlines. And then don't forget economic uncertainty, election uncertainty. The PwC study that came out said 64% of leaders are stressed about economic uncertainty, like fluctuating markets, unpredictable economic conditions. And why do we care about this? We care about this because if the leaders are stressed, that is going to echo through the organization, as well as it's going to make it very difficult for them to stay poised under pressure because already there's not a lot of gas in the tank. And I grabbed that from Brene Brown, who says it's so important to find out how strong the people are, how good they're feeling before you go pile on more pressure. So if your leaders are already feeling depleted and maybe a degree of burnout and other types of fatigue, and then there's a new surprise, very often they have a bigger reaction than they should. So that's what we're working on today is when you don't have a lot of gas in the tank and there is surprise, what can you do? I want you to lean on these 4 practices. The first one is, so you're in a meeting and somebody either accuses you of doing something wrong, they deliver a surprise, they take away your funding, but something is causing an emotional reaction inside your body. And that will usually lead to fight, flight, or freezing, or fawning. If those of you have heard these terms before, fight, flight, freeze, or fawning. But we don't want those reactions. Instead, we want to stay in a listening mode where we can keep productively problem solving. So here are your 4 best practices. Number 1, keep breathing. Number 2, get curious. Number 3, visualize success. And number 4, start your positive self-talk. And most people do not know how to talk to themselves. And so we'll explore that one very deeply. But breathing. Sometimes when that very negative event happens, we stop breathing. And in this case, we want to keep breathing. So, what will happen is you receive the negative message and you slowly take an inhale and slowly exhale. I want you to start bringing your attention to doing this socially or in the comfort of your home because what we don't want it to turn into is a heavy sigh. So, if somebody says something you didn't like and you do this, that big exhale makes you sound irritated. And then the audience is now worried about your negative reaction. Instead, we want it to stay even keel. They should not see your shoulders rise while you're breathing. And what you're doing is you're slowing yourself down and you're helping good airflow get to your brain. During that breathing time, that's when you say something to yourself like, game on. That's what I say to myself. But other people, I have heard many people have an order that they give to themselves that helps them remember, all right, take control over the emotions. Because in the voice, that's where we can hear negative emotion first. You know, when somebody sounds really strident or all of a sudden their pitch is getting really high, that's because there's pressure. We don't want our voices to give away that we're under pressure. And so if the breathing is still happening in a relaxed way, where the throat is open and that your tunnel of air is relaxed and wide, your pitch will stay low and you will stay in control of yourself. I know that for myself, when I can hear my version of a nervous voice, it actually makes me more nervous. But if I can hear a really grounded, low, and controlled pace and a nice low pitch, I feel more in control. So find your control voice through breathing more, using more exhale, so that when you're speaking, there's more air coming out of your mouth on the exhale. All right, secondly, this curious piece. If somebody says your funding has been pulled or we're not happy with your work, that you first get curious. While you're breathing, you think, what's a question I can ask them? And a question might be, please say more about that, which is not really a question, that's an order, but you are asking for more information. Or you could say, interesting. What makes it so? Or you could say something like, oh, why is that? But stay calm as you ask your one question. Don't pile on with 10 questions, one question at a time. And that's you being curious. And soften the face. Make sure you're not furrowing the brow. You're not tilting your chin down, intensifying your eyes and glaring at them. In fact, you might want to lift your eyebrows and say, what makes it so? But stay low and slow. If you show surprise in your voice, that's already showing some emotion. Now, the third piece is visualizing success. Imagine that this is going to be an insightful conversation. This is going to go very well. You are both going to share both points of view, or maybe you have to say all points of view need to be shared if you're in a larger group. And you say to yourself, this is going to be a fruitful discussion, and you visualize this going well. So even if the other person you're speaking to is getting more and more emotional, they're making negative faces, their voice sounds strained and higher pitched, and they're yelling, maybe they're speaking really loud, that you yourself are visualizing, I'll get this person to calm down. I will get this person to listen. So you're visualizing a successful outcome. That fourth item, though, is the positive self-talk. And maybe you've already said to yourself, game on, or let's go, whatever the command is that you use to help yourself control yourself. And then you start the positive self-talk. Here are some examples of positive things you could say to yourself that usually calm people down. The first is saying, nothing has gone wrong. Because the brain is wanting to say, everything has gone wrong. Oh, this is going to be awful. But you're going to calm your brain down to say, nothing has gone wrong here. Nothing has gone wrong. Because then you'll start finding the evidence that what has been discussed is helpful, constructive. Or you will realize you need to tell the person that there's a misunderstanding and calm them down. Second thought you could offer your brain is that we're making progress. Yes, this isn't what we were expecting, but this will help us get to a better outcome. I'm glad we know now. We're making progress. Third one could be, these hard discussions feel amazing. Now, if this is making you laugh and you say, they don't, they don't make me feel amazing, work on this a little bit more. Maybe it's hard work feels amazing. Hard work feels amazing. We're working on an event and we're telling, the theme is heat feels great. And we're talking about when you turn up the heat, which could be the hard work, it feels amazing. Because we want to grow people's resilience toward hard work. That's the point of the event we're leading. Another one is worry serves no purpose. And what you can, with that sentence, you might want to say that one out loud if you see the rest of the room worrying. It's certainly something to say to yourself, but some of these could be said out loud. Worry serves no purpose. There's plenty of time. Now, the reason I like this, there's plenty of time, is most of you are going to say to yourself, we don't have time for this. There's no time. But that's what creates the panic, is when you believe there's no time. It does not help to pressure people to the nth degree on time. There's plenty of time. And you don't want people to rush to a degree that they make unnecessary mistakes out of haste and speediness. Here's another one. I am exactly as I should be. And you might even offer, they are exactly as they should be. Because often we start blaming ourselves or blaming the other people in the room or people out of the room because we want to have a source of who did this. And when you're blaming yourself, it'll look like you're blaming others when you're really disappointed in yourself. And the audience then resists you and they feel very demotivated. So, this sentence, I'm exactly as I should be, is reminding yourself that you have your back, that you love yourself unconditionally, that even if you have missed something, it's okay. This is who I am. I'm exactly as I should be. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with me. There's nothing wrong with me. And if you want to even believe there's nothing wrong with them, because this is going to help you create the positive dynamic you need for the problem solving. And it's going to help you keep your nervous system managed so that you can listen, so that you can ask better questions and react more compassionately and productively. Try these out. These thoughts are even good to practice when you're not under pressure, so that they become beliefs that you can hold easily and beliefs that you can turn to in the moment when you are feeling frustrated. People who do not manage their minds become porcupine personalities at work. I'm sure you work with a porcupine. The reason they're a porcupine is they are not saying these things to themselves. Nothing has gone wrong. We're making progress. Hard work feels amazing. Worry serves no purpose. There's plenty of time. I'm exactly as I should be. They are exactly as they should be. There's nothing wrong with me. I imagine many of you are resisting some of these thoughts because you are still committed to believing that negative thoughts are fueling productivity. Positive thoughts fuel productivity as well. There is another way that is kinder to yourself and kinder to others and builds incredible relationships at work. The type of relationships where teams want to run through walls for each other. I encourage you to look at the softer way that gets longer lasting results, better results, and doesn't lead to burnout. Now let's talk about the actual frameworks you can use for messaging that would help you sound more poised under pressure and remove the conflict in the room. So the first strategy would be to begin with the outcome you're looking for. So you remind the room like this. You say, all right, let's remind ourselves the goal is X. Or let's say, let's set a goal. And you could say, we envision this getting back on track and under budget as soon as possible. Given that goal, where are we right now? And by doing that, by saying, here's the goal, and asking the question, where are we right now? You stay in an inquisitive problem-solving mode, and you don't have to have the answer. Then get them to explain where we are today, and then get the room to suggest a proposed plan. So you're making them, the audience, own the resolution. And then at the end, you can check in and say, are we okay? Is everyone feeling okay? And that gives you an opportunity to acknowledge the emotions in the room that just became negative for a moment. Another thing you could do, so that's beginning with the objective statement or the outcome you're looking for. The second thing you could do is stay in a questioning or inquirer mode. And one of our frameworks we use for this is situation, complication, question. And you could pause the conversation and say, let's regroup on what the current situation is. And then you make sure everybody's clear on the current situation. Because if things just got emotional, you do need to revisit the facts of the situation. Then you could say, what are the complications or risks we need to be looking out for? That's the complication section. And let people feel comfortable to suggest the risks and the concerns that they have. And then the last thing you end with is a question. Maybe you want to offer a few questions. Remember, your audience does best if they hear one question at a time. So you can say, let's make a list of all of our questions, or let's take one question at a time. The first one is, and then ask your first question. The other communication tactic to keep in mind is if people have gotten angry, or they've raised their voice, or they've said words that they shouldn't have said, maybe you need to acknowledge that. And you can stay very calm and controlled and say, those are very strong words. Let's stick to the facts of the situation and then move forward. When you acknowledge that there was strong emotion from someone in the room, it does help that person calm down. If it escalates beyond that, you may want to say, let's reconvene after you've had some time to settle down. And you could end the meeting right there. Now, this is imagining conflict. Sometimes we need to stay poised under pressure just because someone has put us on the spot. For example, I had someone who said what made them most nervous was when they were in a leadership team meeting and the person would turn to them and say, the CEO would turn to them and say, Bob, what do you think? And it was managing his nervousness to be put on the spot. So ask yourself, is that more common for you, that that's the triggering event? And if it is, what you do is you say, game on. You anchor to a structure, one of the message frameworks we teach, like OCTA or Opinion Plus Two, and you give a brief point of view and you get quiet. You don't need to have a 10-minute speech ready to go. When you have these message structures learned and at your fingertips, it's so easy to stay poised under pressure, or at least much easier than it was without them. All right, so the last thing I want to remind you of is, when in doubt, use labeling and mirroring. Those are techniques that come from neuro-linguistic programming, and even Chris Voss talks about it in his book. Labeling and mirroring would be you demonstrating that you're listening by saying what you see. So you could say, it sounds like you're concerned about this. And by doing that, you give yourself time to react, and you're not saying, great question, or any of those stalling techniques, but you're synthesizing or summarizing what you have just heard. Mirroring would be you actually playing back their words to them. So if I said, I'm concerned that these inputs are incorrect, then I could say, oh, incorrect? And that's inviting you to say more about why you believe that they're incorrect. But often just repeating the words that the person has said will help them naturally keep talking and expanding upon what they've just said. All right, so those are our tips for today's lesson on staying poised under pressure. And the next time you get tested, remember, game on. Take care, everyone. If you are enjoying all of these lessons, but now you're hungering to turn all of this into skills and habits that make this work intuitive and natural so that you don't have to think about it, then you want to join Speak by Design University. That's our coaching program that gives you private coaching, group coaching with me, group training, self-paced learning, as well as exceptional networking with other people like you. This program is for managers and above, people whose careers are on fire and they're looking to hit their next level, and they want to do that sooner rather than later. Check it out at speakbydesign.com/join. That's speakbydesign.com/join, and you can start with us at the 1st of next month. We hope to see you there.